Hey guys, this is Justin Ledford and welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Paul Windemuller, and we will be discussing how you can become wealthy through your construction business. If you're a contractor and or an investor, you're going to want to hear these investing strategies and the tactics that we talk about. This class is brought to you by federalconstructionuniversity.com. This is our course for contractors and entrepreneurs, teaching you exactly how to build wealth by completing highly profitable federal contracts all over America or even in your backyard without having any experience. You'll be given unlimited access to all my program series, my high-end mastermind calls, and classes and techniques that I've personally invested over $100,000 in. If you're a fan of completing highly profitable construction jobs, then you're truly going to enjoy my program where I teach you how to find deals, how to bid them correctly, and how to get paid quickly by the government. If you're interested in going through a 6-day free training, I'll drop that link down below. And on top of that, I have a brand new book called Federal Construction Contracts Simplified. It's 90% off right now because I'm trying a crazy marketing experiment. Also, remember to hit that subscribe button. Now, let's dive into our interview with our guest. Here we go. Welcome to the Real Construction Owners Podcast, where we interview real construction owners doing big things to help you go from being a stressed out operator to a thriving business owner. Today, we have a very special guest, Paul Windemuller, out of Wisconsin?
Western Michigan.
Western Michigan. And he is a general contractor by trade. He also has a consulting business called Open Sky Agribusiness, where they design large-scale agricultural projects. And today you're going to learn about how he used value adds on land to increase his net worth. You're going to learn about the value, how important it is to have good quality subs working with you. And we're going to tell you some interesting stories about how he created equity using his construction background. So if you're a contractor wanting to become more wealthy and learn better processes, then pay close attention. What's up, Paul? How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Hey, man, any Go Abundance brother who's doing big things is welcome on my podcast. That's how we know each other, correct?
Yep.
Absolutely. And Paul, before we dive into the goods, tell us your story. Walk us down the history of what got you here today, what you're doing, and why did you decide to go that route?
Yeah, so I grew up at my dad's farm equipment dealership. That was kind of my early start in life around business and agriculture, and through my whole life I've just been really passionate about agriculture, and that's what kind of led me into where I am today. Right now I'm a farm owner, a dairy farm owner, as well as owning the consulting business, and it's always been a passion of mine, and through that journey I've done a lot with construction and agriculture, and specifically in the dairy industry.
I love that. And so you just been in the game for such a long time that it made sense to have parallel things. Be a farmer, number one, but also help businesses to develop their plan and build their projects out, since you've already done it yourself.
Right, exactly.
Okay. And tell us, break down your farm, break down what do y'all do, how much land, what do y'all produce, what kind of revenues, paint a picture for our audience who's like, man, I make good money and, one day I want to start a farm, because that's a dream for a lot of people. I want to become self-sufficient, and it sounds like you have a taste of that, if you're not already living that.
Right. So we started our farm 8.5 years ago with 30 cows. We're specifically producing dairy, also a little bit of beef, but mainly dairy is our main product. And we've currently milked 250 cows in a state-of-the-art robotic facility, milking facility. And we've got one full-time labor, including myself here at the farm, doing more of the overseeing and management. And just a great place to raise our kids. And we're doing about this past year, we did about $1.8 million in revenue, which for basically one full-time person, it's not too bad. And we've kind of capped out with our land base and current facilities that we have at this size. And that's when we did that back in 2018. Then at that point, we had the farm running smooth. I wanted to do something that I could not just impact my own personal wealth and own farm, but help others to grow their businesses from what I had learned going through the farm expansion projects that I had. So,
And from there, you have an interesting story about how this all got started. How you had this idea and then you created equity out of nothing. Can you share with our audience that?
yeah, well, even before that, right when my wife and I first bought the property that we're on today, it was an old dairy farm that had been decommissioned, and we basically just bought it for the house with the hope of having a farm on it someday. But it did have some viable buildings on it, and had some pasture that was already in place. And I like to say I was the first farm hacker. I'm sure some of your listeners probably heard of house hacking. As soon as my wife and I moved in here to our farm, within the first month, we had 3 of the buildings rented, we had the pasture rented, and we were raising some calves of our own to produce some other revenue. And that's kind of how we got started. And we had our property tax, insurance, and mortgage covered within the first month off of doing that. So that was kind of the base that got us to be able to look at, okay, what can we do next with this facility and this property to make it a viable farm? So moving forward, after we got started, we were milking 80 cows in an older barn, and I wanted to build a really nice new freestall barn facility for the cows to house them in. And I got a quote to do the excavation work for that and putting a new manure pit in and everything. And so I knew I wasn't going to have the money to do the whole project that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be able to create some equity. So I ended up calling up a construction equipment rental business and asking them if I said, hey, I'm a farmer. I know how to drive anything. I need to rent a bulldozer and an excavator for a weekend. And had some friends over, and we just kind of made a long weekend out of doing all the excavation work for it. And I think I had $3,000 into the fuel and the equipment rental, and that was a little over $35,000 in excavation work that we did over that weekend. So that was a real quick way that I built equity, and I used that and went to the bank and said, hey, we got the excavation work done. This is what it costs to do it. If I didn't do it myself, will you use that as my down payment on the project? And they took it. They did it. So that was how we made our first move to expand.
So many lessons for the contractor listening in. He basically house hack or business hack. What that means is you buy an asset and then you immediately rent out the doors, and that covers your mortgage. So then you have your business there for free. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is you saw the cost of, construction to get your land established, and you were like, man, I'm just going to do this myself. I've rolled my sleeves, put some sweat equity, and you saved over $35,000 in doing so. And lesson number 3, you took the new value of the land, went to the bank, and it sounds like you got a loan and got money to build your dream life. Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly right.
3 valuable lessons. Even though you're a roofer or a plumber or a general contractor, take what you just heard and implement it, because that's how I've built my wealth. We're listening to Paul Windemuller, who has over a 7-figure net worth. That's why he's in GoBundance, because you have to have a 7-figure net worth to be a part of that group. And him and I are brothers in that same category. And I'm curious about what other types of construction projects you've done and some stories and lessons you could share with us.
Yeah, so I was involved in another farm as a partner, and that was a much larger facility, much larger farm than what my home farm is here. And within the first 6 months of being a partner in that, we did an expansion project to double the size. So went from milking 900 cows to 1,800 cows, and doubled the barn square footage on the property, built a new feed center, a manure system, and several other upgrades to the facility. And within the first 6 months, and I was the general contractor for that project. And I guess going back again, I had worked for a company that did a lot of dairy barn design and facility work for 4 years while I was starting my own farm. And through that, I had gotten a lot of connections in the industry and the construction side of the business, and really formed some good relationships there. Had a lot of experience with designing facilities in the dairy construction realm, and utilized those relationships to make this large scale project happen in a very short amount of time.
And so you basically utilized a skill set that you were on a journey yourself. You utilized relationships. You built out the project as the general contractor, as a consultant or a general contractor?
As the general contractor for the project, yep.
And that was what, a few $1 million project?
That was roughly $4 million.
So $4 million on an ag project, what is that, like 10%, 12% profit rate or something?
Yeah, that's what a normal general contractor for those types of projects would charge.
So that's not a bad gig. You learned a skill set for your own passion, and then you went out and helped somebody else, and you made over $400,000 on that endeavor.
Right. So that the key. The key for that is for me is just keep learning. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to take a new challenge, as long as you're willing to put the work in to learn. And I spent a lot of time just learning from the other best contractors that I knew in the industry, and getting their feedback and learning what they were doing that worked for them.
So that's lesson number one. Give us 2 more lessons that you learned in that endeavor.
I would say the other key is working with the subs that you're using. And we had a big team meeting before the project even started, where I got all the subs around the table together and said, this is our timeline for the project. This is what we're going to accomplish. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to work together. Everyone look around who's in this room. If you can't work with somebody in this room, we all need to know it right now. And we're going to have to figure out something else to do, or somebody else to bring in for that portion of the project. And that really set the tone for the project, I think. And it was a 6-month project. It was a long scale project for what I was used to anyways. And that really, there was always some tension. You're always going to have that, right? Hey, this guy's behind and I need him to catch back up so I can do my stuff. But starting out with that mindset of, we're going to work together, and if you can't, that's okay, but you're not going to be a part of this project. And I think that
we call that collaborate to dominate. When you work together, you can get more done than when you're like, you white knuckle it and think it's all yours and only you can, lead it. When you work together, you're open and you can get so much more bounties and blessings. So lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, what is it?
Wise
people. You told me about wise people.
Yeah. So just utilizing people that are in the industry that have the wisdom, that have gone before you, that have done what you're working to do, and asking them for ideas, whether that be, hey, what would be the best slope for the concrete in this situation? And, oh yeah, don't forget to run these empty PVC pipes underground in case you need to run electric under the barns in the future. And just little things like that you might not think of on your first big project like that, that really ended up saving some money in the long term, because we did end up running, electric wires where we had put that PVC in the past. And just having foresight that I gained through those conversations was very valuable.
Now, regarding the planning of the schedule, because a lot of contractors listening in, they want to get into bigger construction, but they don't necessarily know how to do a Gantt chart or a schedule of values. And it sounds like you did that. Can you elaborate on the methodology of the Gantt chart or the schedule of values? Share with our audience how that worked.
Yeah, so I did a scope of work for each aspect of the subcontractor that was involved, and really tried to outline, hey, this is exactly what we expect. This is exactly this is how we're going to treat people on the job site. This is how we're going to communicate, or asking them, how do you communicate? Do you communicate through text? Do you communicate through email? Do you communicate through only in person? all those type of things. I laid out beforehand and just tried to be as clear and precise as possible. And there were always things that come up that you didn't see, right? That happens, but and really being concise about this is exactly when you're going to get your draws. This is what I'm gonna inspect where you're supposed to be in the project at that point in time. And if it passes my inspection, you'll get that draw. If it doesn't, you need to go back and catch back up before you're going to get that draw, and just be very clear about when those timings in the project was going to be.
Now, with that being said, was this all on a Gantt chart, or did you just have it written on a piece of paper? Was it on an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, I wasn't very fancy. It was just on an Excel spreadsheet that I emailed to everybody, and it was a shared document that everyone could see. So
Smart. So I have a mastermind called Federal Construction University, where we do government contracts nationwide. And one of the things that I learned from my mentor, he taught me how to manage large projects that take a long time, like this one that you're talking about. And one of the tools or templates that I learned along the way that the government uses is called a Gantt chart. I'm sure you heard about it, where each column is like a week, and then each row is like a trade. So like this trade needs to be done by this amount of weeks, and some of them are going to overlap, right?
Right. Yep.
Multiple trades are working, but you list it out in a way to where it's like they know what they're going to get paid as long as they complete it, and they know their percentage complete methodology or how they're going to get paid. So it's cool that you do that outside of the government realm, but you're doing it in the commercial realm, and it's interesting to hear. Now,
the reasoning that I did that was because of my former employment that I had while I was dairy farming, doing the construction consulting and that sort of stuff for the dairy projects. I had seen a lot of projects that were even bigger than that had no coordination whatsoever, and one contractor would just be way behind, and they didn't really care because, well, nobody told me when I'm going to get my money, or they whined and complained long enough that somebody gave them too much money, and they didn't have to come back for a really long time to finish the job, and it just would drag things out for so long. And even on our project, I probably should have held a little bit more back at the end to stimulate a little quicker finish. The last 10%, that seemed to take the longest.
It's funny, in Mexico, there's a culture, there's a saying, I don't know it in Spanish, but it's like, if you pay the band all up front, they're going to play very lousy. You got to pay them in draws, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious because I live in Costa Rica, very fertile, and I want to, become self-sufficient. I have over an acre, beautiful, tied to a river, freshwater river that comes down from the mountains nonstop 24/7. And I'm thinking about putting like a solar irrigation drip system in, but then I need to like dig some trenching to plant the seeds. But I have this limiting belief. I mean, I'm always going to have to put good soil in. Can you send me some resources on like, I need to go collect some cow manure somewhere. There's farms nearby. And like, how do I make that cow manure into good soil? Can you send me some resources on that?
Yeah, I should be able to find a few for you.
Okay.
About composting. Yep. That's one thing that we're really big on, is utilizing the manure as a resource and not as a detriment to the farm, but utilizing it as a resource to grow the crops we need to feed the cows.
That's awesome. So you actually have the farm, and then you use the resources and you grow your own crops. How can you elaborate a little bit how you use the manure resource and like what the process is?
Yeah. So for us, we just have commercial equipment that comes in, and we have a big storage pond that we store the nutrients in. We like to call it nutrients instead of manure. That's what it is. It's holding the nutrients that plants need to grow. So they come in, and then they spread it on the fields before we're going to plant the crops, and then, or while they're growing, depending on what crop it is. And then that's what feeds the crops. That nutrients goes into the soil, and hopefully it gets held there, and then it's available there for the plants to use in an organic
Interesting
fashion.
You say that, because for years I tried to figure out how to grow crops. For years, I literally every morning I was playing with it and nothing. And then finally I found the Pilgrims used to put fish underneath and then put the seed. And I did that. And when I lived in Houston, Texas, and my garden literally flourished. I had cucumbers the size of my arms. I had tomatoes bigger than my fist. Things were just like hanging. It was incredible. You got to have good nutrients in your soil. And just like in construction, you got to have the right knowledge, the right insights before you take on a project. Correct?
Exactly. Yep.
And what would you say to somebody who you've done really well for yourself. You have a 7-figure net worth, are you a champion, or are you in that?
I'm not a champion yet. No,
I'm not a champion.
Not quite that far along.
Basically, listen, audience, if you don't know what that is, in GoBundance, champion is somebody who has an 8-figure net worth. I hear that once you get to 8-figure net worth, meaning you have over $10 million in assets, that's when life just becomes way easier. I'm not there yet. He's not there yet. But what would you tell a contractor who is like, man, I want more passive income. I want, more freedom. I'm always just chasing the rat race. I don't have any time. I'm always worried about my next job. What would you tell them? What are some personal growth nuggets you could share with them?
Yeah, for me, it's just learning from people that have the experience, right? So if you're in GoBundance, if I'm not in the champions division, but I know a lot of them, talk to those guys. How did they get there? So look at people that are further along in your journey than you are, and learn from them how they got to where they did, and just don't be afraid to learn. And then for myself, I didn't come from the dairy industry. That was a niche that I saw that, hey, this is something I'm interested in. Not a lot of people want to do it. So usually there's an opportunity where there's something that not a lot of people want to do or understand. So if you take the time to learn, and then be willing to invest, and just make it happen.
Man, 3 powerful nuggets right there. This gentleman became a 7-figure earner because he learned from others that are wiser and had specified knowledge. He said, they have what I want, and he went after that knowledge and got it. Number 2 is he went into a niche that very few other people were going in. Because when you go after a niche that very few people are going in, there's opportunity. Nobody wants to do it. I might as well do it because there's profit in it. Those are 2 valuable lessons right there. Paul, this has been a blast, man. You've delivered the goods. What would you say to our audience who, is trying to figure out a better process and in marketing? Like, how do your clients find you in consulting? Because you're doing large projects. Share how somebody can reach out to you.
Yeah. So for myself, just really word of mouth is probably the best. Let your actions speak for themselves, and eventually that gets around, especially, like I said, when you're in a small industry. If you're good, people know who you are. If you're bad, people know who you are, and they're going to stay away from you. So that's a big one for me. But if anyone's interested in learning more about what I do, or learning about farming in general, I love talking about it. It's my passion. So they can email me at paul@openskyaagribusiness.com, or find me on Facebook. I'm on there as well, and shoot me a instant message.
Love this. Paul Windemuller, a general contractor who's done large projects. He also owns Open Sky Agribusiness, where he's a consultant to help farming construction projects. And he's also a successful farmer herself. Today, this has been a blast. Thank you for being on the Real Construction Owners Podcast, Paul.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
All right, you guys. I hope you enjoyed that one. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe for more and drop me a comment below. Just so you know, I have 6 free classes for you teaching you how to win highly profitable government contracts. Just go to federalconstructionuniversity.com or click in the link in the descriptions below. And also, see in the comments below where you'll see my new book, Federal Construction Contract Simplified. The link will be below. It's going to give you peace of mind, teaching you a blueprint, how you can become an 8-figure contractor and have all the things you need to know, from finding the deals, bidding them, what to say to subcontractors and suppliers, how to get paid by the government. It'll give you the peace of mind. It's an amazing tool if you want to learn how to win government contracts. So if that interests you, click in the link in the description below or go to Federal Construction Contracts Simplified. Until next time, I'll see you on our next video.